guys, and welcome back to the Cruel Room. We're here once again in this wonderful ranty room for all things Formula One. The Japanese Grand Prix has come to a close, and what could be said, yet another decent race this season. Finally, after the summer break, this season seems to be getting a little bit better now, doesn't it? The competition of the cars are closing up a little bit. McLaren bringing some huge updates that keep working. It's just really turned the championship on its head somewhat in terms of everyone else except Red Bull, really. But it's made it certainly a lot more exciting. The Japanese Grand Prix, there were some good overtakes. There were some great battles towards the end as well. Just a shame it's not further up front, but that can't be helped, can it? Max is just Max at the moment. Red Bull is just Red Bull. But overall, I thought it was a solid race. So if you've never seen this series before, I award the drivers out of a maximum of 10 points based on their race weekend's performance, and I go all the way down to 0 if they have a particularly bad one. Take a look out for bonus points though. They're sometimes enough for some drivers that do something extra special during the race, and on the very rare occasion I do award minus points to those drivers that do something extra special, but for all the wrong reasons. Let's take a look at the current Cruel Room standings then. Going into this episode, it's on the screen now for you to take a look at. Have a look and see where your favourite driver is. It was all change after the Singapore Grand Prix. Max Verstappen taking a huge hit in his title challenge here on the Cruel Room by being awarded a Latifi of the week and minus 20 points. Could he rectify it here though this weekend at Japan? Could you see him climbing up a little bit? Could you see anyone close to the top taking a tumble? All will be revealed in this episode, of course. So we're going to kick things off with the race winner then. Max Verstappen, back to his usual position once again. What could be said? Singapore was just a very one-off weekend for the Red Bull squad. It looked that way. It always looked like it was going to be a tough challenge, but I think had Max at that weekend kept his head through qualifying in the race, he could have done more. I would just like to say that for Singapore. The car looked to have the pace at the end of that race, didn't it? As for this race though, this race weekend, there's not really much to say, is there? It's another pole position, it's another win, with the fastest lap to go with it as well. Or did he get fastest lap? Oh, I've got myself thinking now. Oh, I can't remember. Not that it matters anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah, this win at Japan means that technically he could win the championship officially, like he's not already won it, but he could officially win it at Qatar on the Saturday in the sprint race if he wins the race and his nearest two competitors score no points at all. And then I think if that doesn't happen, then it's even pretty much just odds on he will win it at Qatar anyway, I think, isn't it? Is it him win and Checo outside the top 6? I mean, that's probably going to happen, isn't it? So yeah, something like that anyway. But yeah, nonetheless, this weekend for Max Verstappen, really, it's just been another good weekend, hasn't it? You know, pole position by nearly 0.6 of a second, got into the 128s. He had a bet with his, of course, his team engineer, Gianpiero Lambiase. Says, I bet you can't get into the 28s, and he did indeed get into the 28s, so that was a good effort. That lap time that he did in Q3 anyway, the first lap time was always going to be enough to seed him into pole position. And then at the race, he didn't have the most amazing start off the line. It must be said, Oscar Piastri was up the inside of him just, but then in Piastri's own words, got a little too overexcited in the second phase, too much throttle, and wheel spun his way further back, so he couldn't have a go up the inside. Lando Norris had a fantastic start and came round the outside, but that was always a compromised line and just couldn't quite do it, and that was the only challenge that Max had really off the line from the two McLarens, and then he just pissed off into the distance. So Max Verstappen this weekend, he is going to get a full 10 points from me. It's good to see him back up there in his usual positions once again. A full 10 points from me for that. And yeah, pole position, the win. I think he got fastest lap. I just can't quite remember. But either way, a solid effort once again. Back on form, not moaning, not crying. And of course he's not going to moan or cry when he's pole and winning. But he needs to shut the fuck up when he's not poling and winning, because it could happen soon. So yeah, Max Verstappen, a perfect 10 this race around. Finishing in second place, we come to Lando Norris in the mighty McLaren. Wow, whoa, wow. They brought those upgrades to Singapore. It worked well there. And then they've come to Japan and they're still working well. I cannot believe it. Third place off the line for Lando Norris. Ended up securing second place off the line. As mentioned, Oscar Piastri had a second phase bit of a wobble there, didn't he? Got overexcited in the second phase of the launch, and that meant that Lando Norris was able to sweep round the outside of him. Virtual safety car came out at the wrong time in theory for Lando, the correct time for Oscar Piastri. Oscar ended up getting a slightly better pit stop. The virtual safety car was called whilst Oscar was already in the pit lane, so it kind of halved his pit stop time somewhat, and meant that Piastri then leapfrogged Norris, but then as it came by, Norris had faster pace and was allowed through on Oscar. And yeah, that's where he stayed back up to P2. Lando Norris this weekend, again, decent weekend, another solid effort by him. No denying that, what a fantastic effort he has put into this weekend. And for me personally, Lando Norris is getting 9 points on the cruel room for me personally. And the only reason I'm knocking that point off is because I do think he should have maybe got that second place. He should have been on the second place position and should have out-qualified his teammate. But nonetheless, did everything right, really. And yeah, he just did a solid effort. Don't want to take anything away from him, of course, but 9 is where I feel is fair for Lando Norris. And then we come to Oscar Piastri. I cannot believe it. It's been overdue as well, hasn't it? It's been overdue. The last load of updates came at Austria for Lando Norris. It was the race after which I believe was Silverstone then, that both cars were on the pace. And Oscar Piastri just got shafted by that late safety car there at Silverstone, did it, to lose his rightful podium there. So he should have been a podium finisher sooner this season than he actually was, but it's finally come good. And where's it come good at? A circuit he's never even been to. A country he's never even been in. Unbelievable. P2 and his first front row start in Formula 1 to top off a first podium as well with P3. What a stunning effort. Yeah, the updates do play their part, but Oscar Piastri this weekend, you'd have been looking, yeah, you know, good car, solid car, but it's his first time here, might not be able to get quite up to speed. Maybe a top 5's realistic. Oh, he's just pissed all over everyone, hasn't he? First front row finish and first podium. I'm just so happy for him. It is long overdue. It should have come sooner, but it's come here, and it's just shown how quality of a driver he is. Extending his contract with McLaren as well, of course, until the end of 2026. So we've got a few more years of the Piastri to talk about. And I think the only way is up from here for him, really. If McLaren can just start the season off with a decent car, I think they can, you know, bring the updates accordingly then. They could challenge up front. They've really just knuckled down, and the 2 major updates, that's all they've come. They've had a couple of little bits here and there in earlier races, but the main bulk of it has been, look, we understand the car, let's put massive lumps of upgrade on in one go, so the advantage is clear to see, and it's worked both times. So they need to hit the ground running going into 2024, and they don't want to fall back, because the last couple of years they've had a really shocking start and then got better. They need to be where they are now at the beginning of 2024 and then build on that. Easier said than done, I know, and the McLaren team will be looking to see how that could be possible. But for me personally, Oscar Piastri this weekend has been exceptional. What a fantastic driver that he has been. Unbelievable stuff. So it's a perfect 10 for me. A perfect 10. Front row start, out-qualified his teammate. And yeah, okay, he got outraced by his teammate in the race. But is that understandable? Absolutely. But he's not there just picking up 1 or 2 points, is he? He's there just a few seconds behind his teammate over the line, who's much more experienced in Formula 1, much more experienced around the Japanese circuit. It's a good effort. So for me, perfect 10 for Oscar Piastri, and I am absolutely thrilled for him, if you can't already tell. Finishing in P4, it is sha-la-la. Oh, sacre bleu, sha-la-la. Well, I don't really need to say sacre bleu, do I? It's just been a solid campaign for him now, isn't it? Since the summer break, he's been decent. You know, he's not been getting the win like his teammate did, of course, at Singapore last time out. But this race, P4, best of the Ferraris. Could they have done anything else? Not really. There was nothing else there to ask, was there? It didn't have an answer for the McLaren team. Certainly doesn't have an answer for the Red Bull, but no one does. But yeah, Charles Leclerc finishing P4. He's had, what has he had, a P4 for the last 3 races now or something? It's been decent. I mean, you know, you look at Singapore and you think that were a podium gone missing there for him. But this weekend around, P4 was the best he was going to do. And that's what he did. So for Shalala, it's going to be 8.5 to him. 8.5 for Shalala. A solid weekend, a great drive. Don't want to take anything away from him. But there was Oscar Piastri further up ahead of him that had a more impressive drive. And Max Verstappen's found his feet again, awarding him a perfect 10. So, yeah, Shalala this weekend. 8.5 to him. Next up, it is Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes. And P5, you look at it and you think, that's okay, that's decent, but the Mercedes drivers got to me this week, and I've got to be honest, I was very unimpressed with them. Going wheel to wheel like they were doing, shoving each other off the road, and just being a bit silly. And then the team orders game at the end there that didn't make sense against Carlos Sainz. I just all looked at it, just like, you know, you just look at the telly. I was watching it at like 6 in the morning. I was just there sighing. Like, oh, for fuck's sake. Like, it just seems a bit petty and childish between the two of them at the minute. George and Lewis just... I think they must have had a falling out or something, because there's just no respect between the two of them at the moment, it seems. I noticed at the end of the race as well, at the end of Singapore, where George stuffed it in the wall and Hamilton got the podium, didn't even mention George. You know, and it kind of made me think, well, maybe there's tensions between them, and now they've been pushing each other off the track, and... yeah, I was just mightily unimpressed with it all, I've got to be honest. The whole thing from start to finish, I was just like, oh, like, fuck's sake. So, what I've done is I've just awarded Lewis Hamilton the Miller 05. That's all he's getting from me, really. I don't know what to say much more than that. It's just, I was just unimpressed by the whole situation that was going on there, and I just thought, do you know what, you need to work a bit more together, maybe have the worked a bit closer together, and not cost each other the time they did. And I know we're all about racing, and yes, I do like people going wheel to wheel, but, you know, when you're just trying to fight for the bigger picture of getting, like, a better position in the Constructors' Championship and holding your advantage, and I just kind of think, come on, for fuck's sake, just work together towards the end of the season. The car's shit, we get it. Build on 2024, but build up your relationship and get going, you know, but... it was just all a bit of a lover's tiff, to be honest, and it didn't please me at all. So, yeah, it's a Miller 05 to Lewis Hamilton, and the only thing I will say for Lewis Hamilton is that was a fantastic move up the inside of Fernando Alonso at 130R. That was a great move, and I did watch that, and I did think that was impressive. That was a great move. So that's the only reason why he's getting anything more than... that's the only reason why he's getting 5, really. I'd have probably given him less... if I could have done, but I do have to say well done to Lewis Hamilton for that overtake. I don't care if it was tyre advantage or not. It's a ballsy move, that, and I did approve. But yeah, the lover's tiff between him and his teammate, and then not waiting for the DRS and stuff like that, I just thought, for fuck's sake. So yeah, there you go. Miller 05 to Lewis Hamilton. Finishing in 6th place is Carlos Sainz. Smooth operator, smooth, well, smoothish. You know, what could be said, really? Smoothish. Certainly wasn't the win of Singapore, but it wasn't going to be, was it? It was never going to be. This weekend, though, it looked like Leclerc sort of had the advantage over him, really, to be honest. Sainz just did a solid job, but nothing special. Was fairly anonymous, to be honest, apart from the closing stages where he tried to hunt down the Mercedes. He got one of them, couldn't quite get the other. But that's life, as they say. Finishing P6 or P5 doesn't really make any difference, to be honest, does it? I mean, it does, of course, in terms of a couple of points, but in the grand scheme of things, his race was just solid, and not much more than that, to be honest. So I have awarded Carlos Sainz a solid 7 to mark his solid performance, but nothing special from this weekend. And yeah, I'm probably still fixated on the delights of Singapore, but yeah, just was a bit anonymous until the closing stages, and I'm just like, oh, there's Carlos. You know, it was one of those races from him. So I thought, if I've not really seen what he's been up to, then the most I can award him is 7, really. So that's what he's getting. A solid 7 to Carlos Sainz. Then we come to George of the Russell. Watch out for your teammate. Here he is, George of the Russell, on his final warning anyway. I've decided not to disqualify him this time around, but he is on the thinnest of thin ice. Absolutely he is. Because, again, I was just unimpressed with what he was doing with Hamilton. I just thought, this is fucking childish, this. And I don't really know what more I can say on it. I wasn't impressed. Just wasn't impressed by the pair of them. And George Russell this weekend just was okay again. He's just having a difficult season. He's clearly having a rough time of it. I mean, last year's Cruel Room champion is almost at the bottom of the standings anyway and close to disqualification. It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. He shouldn't be in this situation, but he's just been very lacklustre, very drab, very dull, very boring, and he's had a couple of unlucky races, but that's been about it. You know, the rest of it, he's just been poor. This weekend for me personally, okay, he was on a different strategy. They tried the one-stop, didn't quite work out. That's life, that's racing. Had to try something to get him up there, because he's not up there on his own, you know. So there we go. George of the Russell is 3 points from me. He's lucky he's not got disqualified. He can't get any more Latifis, of course, because he is already on that final warning. And yeah, I didn't think it was disqualification worthy, but I was certainly still wasn't impressed. So he's got to hang on for a few more rounds yet before I disqualify him. But the way he's going at the moment, I can't see it. I can't see him surviving this season without getting disqualified. But we'll wait and see. And I always hope that some drivers take on board what I'm saying, like they're watching. But, you know, one of these days, the drivers will watch, they will listen, and they will get a lot better than and listen to my feedback, and they'll get a lot better from there. But at the moment, just 3 points to George. He's lucky he's got that. Then we come to Fernando Alonso. The Aston Martin's gone drastically downhill, hasn't it? It's sort of like ending the season now, the start of 2022, isn't it? Like, it's just, there's nowhere really. It's just a bit of a shame, isn't it? I mean, we know there's only one Aston Martin in the race anyway. That goes without saying. We all understand that. But to see that Aston Martin that used to finish in the podium positions, and if not always inside the top 5, they're just scraping a couple of points here and there, and here they are in P8, not doing a great deal. It's 4 points on the board, but it's just a shame, isn't it? Just a shame. I mean, they should firmly be second in the constructors, shouldn't they, really, if they had 2 cars? But, you know, running a solo project's always going to be difficult. You know, you've got the likes of McLaren now that have just suddenly got really good and getting a lot of decent points hauls. You know, these last 2 rounds, Aston Martin have just scored 4 points. And how many have McLaren scored? Well, they've had a 3rd and a 7th, and then a 2nd and a 3rd. That's a hell of a lot of chunky points, that, isn't it? So yeah, we'll see how the season pans out, but Aston Martin need updates and they need them quickly. Fernando Alonso was on a compromise strategy as well during the race. He said he'd been left out there like a sitting duck practically. Too late on one tyres, but too soon for the others. It just didn't work out. And for Fernando Alonso, it's going to be a solid 7 to him. I don't think he could have done much more, really. Car's not really got the capability at the moment. It held off for the Alpines at the end there, I suppose. That's decent to outscore those. But yeah, not really much more can be said. A solid 7 to Fernando Alonso. Then we come to Esti Ocon. Esti Ocon. Esti Besti to you. Ain't like Esti Ocon. Dirty. The Alpine drivers this weekend were fairly anonymous themselves, wasn't they? They really were. I don't know what could be said. They didn't have a great qualifying. I can't remember who did what, but there was one in 12th and one in 14th. And here they are picking up 9th and 10th. And in theory, they only got ahead of the AlphaTauris to get here, didn't they? Of course, Sergio Perez destroying the whole world, which was fairly negated all those incidents and problems, didn't it? Then they avoided the clash at the start as well, of course, which helped them gain a couple of places there. So in theory, the only ones that they sort of overtook on merit to get into the points was the AlphaTauris. Not a stunning effort, really, by them. So for Esti Ocon, going to be 6 points to him. Just again, a fairly anonymous weekend. Nothing special, nothing spectacular. And picks up a couple of points. Could it have been more? Should it have been more? Probably. But again, Alpine just seem to be doing the Aston Martin flump at the minute and just falling down there. So, yeah, a 3-point haul is okay. But then when you've got your main rivals picking up 18 and 15, yeah, it's a big deficit, isn't it? So, yeah. For Esti Ocon, just 6 points to him. The final points paying position, of course, comes to Esti Besti's teammate, Pierre Gasly. Give it one of them. Get one of them, Pierre. Go on, get one of them. Yeah, that's right. Pierre Gasly was not happy about being told to let his teammate back through in the closing stages of the race. Pierre Gasly was allowed to overtake Esteban Ocon because of a team order, basically, to see if Gasly could go at Alonso and get Alonso. When that venture failed in the closing stages of the race, they asked the driver of Pierre Gasly to swap with Esti Besti, because, of course, they wanted Esteban Ocon to get the rightful finishing position for him. And Pierre Gasly wasn't that happy about it, so as Esteban Ocon overtook him, he gave him the finger, which was very funny to watch. I must be honest, that on board was quite funny. Not that we saw it in the real live in race, of course. No, we have to look afterwards. You know, real-time Formula 1, we just have to focus on shit. You know, but, yeah. In the race itself, it was a great moment. I enjoyed watching it back. I thought, funny. And, yeah, Pierre Gasly gave him the finger. Pierre Gasly getting the same score as Esti Ocon. He can try and +1 from me, but it's not going to happen there, Pierre. You tried your best, but you failed. It's just 6 points to Pierre Gasly as well. Same reasons as Esti really. Should have been in Q3, wasn't. And maybe should have been a little bit higher up. Couldn't get Alonso. That was it, really. Yeah, 6-2, Pierre Gasly. Finishing just outside the points in P11, we come to Liam Lawson, potentially his last race in Formula 1. For a while, anyway. He's not got the AlphaTauri seat for next year because they've decided to stick that silly old fart that can't race and can't drive Daniel Ricciardo in. I'm not impressed, but there we go. I don't think you can tell. But yeah, Liam Lawson, once again, he's done a solid job, hasn't he? This circuit, he comes with a little bit more of a home advantage, so to speak. You know, he raced in the Super Formula here in April. He's done test days here prior to going there. So yeah, okay, he's not driven a Formula 1 car around there before, but he's had 3 previous weekends. He's here this weekend at a familiar circuit to him. And he delivers P11 in qualifying and P11 in the race. I don't think there's anything more you can do with that. The AlphaTauris were squabbling at the start for position. Tsunoda lost a couple of places and Liam Lawson went up 1, of course, into the points-paying positions due to Yuki losing a couple. And yeah, it sort of worked out that way for a little while. They stayed ahead of each other. Then Liam Lawson pitted after Yuki, so Yuki got the leap on him. And then they tried Yuki on a completely different strategy that just didn't work. Liam stayed out, obviously, and then he got the advantage. They were fighting at the end, but Yuki couldn't get past. And Liam Lawson stayed in that P11 position. Wasn't for points, it was a shame. But realistically, that AlphaTauri probably did the best it could this weekend. They're thinking of moving the factory to England, aren't they, for next year, apparently? Oh, that move's already in process. And getting more pally with the Red Bull squad, of course, and trying to get every customer part available that they can from them. So I'm sure it will be a much improved AlphaTauri for next year. Will be interesting to see how it goes. Liam Lawson this weekend, though, I think he's done a solid job once again. Certainly not the dizzying heights of Singapore. And I'm awarding him 8. 8 points to Liam Lawson. Potentially the last time we were awarding points for a while. But we'll wait and see what happens. He's took the reserve driver role at AlphaTauri for next season and has apparently already put pen to paper to sign for 2025 to drive either the AlphaTauri or the Red Bull. Now, let's be honest, we know it's going to be the AlphaTauri, but it's promising nonetheless. So yeah, 8 points to Liam Lawson. If he's not there for Qatar, he's done a stunning job. He's proved his worth in Formula 1 and he deserves a seat quickly. In 12th place, we come to Yuki Tsunoda. So he got into Q3 and qualified P9. Great effort, that, in front of his home crowd as well. Let's not forget that. Yuki's home race. In the race itself, as mentioned, he tumbled down at the start there and eventually did lose out to Liam Lawson, despite them going side by side for practically a whole lap and a bit. It was quite exciting, that. It was good to watch. There were no forcing each other off the track either. If you watch their race, it was respectful racing, not shoving each other off the road, Mercedes. Take note. Then in the race, as already mentioned with Liam Lawson, he was left out there for quite a long time on the medium tyres, longer than he really needed to be or should have been on. He compromised his race, compromised his chance of points. He did catch up to the back of Liam, but just couldn't quite get past him at the end. So for Yuki Tsunoda, I've awarded him 7.5. I just think he deserves a little bit less than his teammate for finishing ahead of him. But again, the qualifying effort was decent, good to see. Had good enough pace, but just not quite points worthy. Maybe if the strategy had played out a little bit differently, could have been on the end of the Alpines, maybe. Who knows? But yeah, 7.5 to Yuki Tsunoda. Finishing in 13th place and unlucky for some, it is Zhou Guanyu.
Who's slower, Mina Williams or Ferrari's pit stops?
And there we have it. It is a Latifi of the week to Zhou Guanyu. Now, admittedly, he didn't really do anything overly wrong this weekend, but he's not done anything right, has he? Let's be honest with you. A poor qualifying performance once again sees him out in Q1. Is the car capable of Q2? I personally think it is. Maybe not round this circuit, but he's down at the back. You know, he's really struggling. And then in the race itself, okay, you know, I don't really know what to say about it. He's just here 13th, and that's the end of that, to be honest with you. I think it's a culmination of all the poor races he's had this season. Some have gone unnoticed by me, some have been noticed by me, but he's not received a Latifi because others have done worse. But this weekend there's no hiding for him, and it is a Latifi of the week to him because he's just really just a bit lacklustre, isn't he? I cannot believe he's retained his seat for next season, but then again, money talks, doesn't it? I do want to see him much improved. I like the guy. I do like the guy. I want to see him have a resurgence next season and really go for it. You know, it's his second season this season. He needs to be delivering. And next season, come on now. You need to have like a Yuki terms of like gaining performance. You know, Yuki's really knuckled down this third season. I didn't think he should have got this time around for Zhou. Next season he really does have to deliver, otherwise he'll be quickly chucked out the door and disqualified by me. So yeah, Zhou Guanyu, Latifi of the week to him. In 14th place we come to Nico Hülkenberg. The Haas this weekend once again, pissing nowhere. Nowhere really, is it? Shame to say, but it is just the truth, isn't it? Out in Q1, his teammate did scrape into Q2, and here he is just finishing slightly ahead of his teammate, the last two finishers of the race as well. Nico Hülkenberg, I've awarded him a middle of the road 5. I don't know what else I can do for the Haas, to be honest with you. This weekend's one of those weekends where they're just nowhere towards the back, not doing anything special. You know, they're not even in the mix for anything. It was just, again, just a dismal weekend by them. It's not the driver's fault, of course it isn't, but it's just a poor performance. And I can't award it, despite the fact he probably drove his heart and soul out, but here he is still 14th. It's middle of the road 5 to Nico Hülkenberg. And in 15th place, it is Nico Hülkenberg's teammate, of course, Kevin Magnussen, through into Q2. So that's the last 2 times he's out-qualified his teammate now, who has had the measure of him in qualifying. Let's not forget that. So that was a positive and encouraging thing to see. And in the race itself, he was doing okay. Again, nothing special like Hülkenberg. On his way down to tumbling towards the inevitable back of the grid, of course, because of the Haas degradation in the car itself. And then he just got wiped out and turned around by Sergio Perez, and that cost him about 30 seconds while he spun round and got going again. And yeah, it put a nail in the coffin to his already tough race weekend, I would say. And here he is finishing 15th. So again, for K-Mag, it's a middle of the road 5. Maybe harsh by a point, that to be fair. Maybe he should have outscored Hülkenberg for the fact that he did out-qualify him. But nonetheless, it's just so difficult to judge these Haas's. It's just a lacklustre performance once again, and it's not their fault. You know, it isn't their fault, but there's drivers doing a lot better in a lot less cars. You know, the AlphaTauris are up there, and you think, okay, well, it shouldn't really be, but it is. The Haas, it'd be nice to see him a bit further up, but I know it can't be realistically happening. The tyre deck's just too excessive. The car's just not great. The strategies aren't great either. It's just the back marker car at the moment. So yeah, middle of the road 5 to Kevin Magnussen. Then we come to the list of retirements, and the first on this list, of course, the last to retire in the race itself. It is Alex Albon. A big shame for Williams. I think this is a missed opportunity for them personally. I was expecting them to maybe scrape a point or two, and judging by where the AlphaTauri was, it could have been possible. Alex Albon qualified 13th. I think it should have realistically been into Q3. You know, if Yuki Tsunoda managed to get into Q3, Liam Lawson just missed out on Q3 as well. I think the Williams car should have been there, so maybe not a great lap in Q2 by Alex, unfortunately. Saw him down in 13th place and saw him get involved in that first lap shenanigan there. Well, it wasn't even the first corner, was it? It was on the straight itself. Cars just came over on everyone. Alex was right at the edge, got clicked up into the air. Heavy floor damage from that. They kept him going after a pit stop. It didn't pay anything off. No dividends were paid off by that. The car was getting gradually worse as the floor kept shedding itself to pieces. And in the end, they decided that retirement was the best option because they weren't going to get anything from the weekend other than more damage. Potentially, Alex could lose the car and have a crash because the downforce was so bad and unbalanced. So a big shame for Alex this weekend. And out of the maximum of 5 points I can score a retirement, of course you may be aware or may not be aware, but the maximum the drivers that retire can score is 5, and Alex Albon's going to be receiving 3, and I think that's fair. I think that's a fair assessment of his qualifying. Okay, the race came undone straight away, but the qualifying itself, I think he should have been a little bit further up and avoiding those problems that did happen for him. And yeah, middle of the row 3 to Alex Albon. I mean, then we just come to the pile of shite, don't we? I mean, what the fucking hell am I going to do with these? Am I even going to bother with the driver icons and talk about them specifically? Or are we just going to talk about them all in one big fucking group and one big happy family like it's Alcoholics Anonymous or something? Because these are just the rejects of the fucking field, aren't they? And how do we know that the rejects of the field? They all retired. I just cannot believe it. I cannot believe it at all. What the fuck are they all playing at down here? I mean, who have we got officially anyway? Let's talk about them in order, but we're going to talk about them together collectively as well. As a community, as a group, and see if we can all help them. All lovey-dovey and help them, shall we? So officially, it's Logan Sargeant I should be talking about next. And what could be said for his race weekend once again? Pathetic. I'm sorry, this isn't good enough now. I can't be like beating around the bush anymore. I can't be saying I'm confident he's going to do X, Y, Z next race. Oh, he needs to knuckle down and get better. He is costing Williams some big damage and some big money. James Vowles hit the nail on the head there when they were talking to him after qualifying with that shunt there before the race itself happened. And they were saying, look, this means that we've got to spend money on getting the car parts fixed that are now damaged, as opposed to bringing updates to the car. We have to shelve the updates and repair the bits that we've already got, but the updates make you faster. So it's a catch-22 situation. You're on a budget cap. You of course have to prioritise what you need to spend during a season, and they're now having to spend their money on fixing damage as opposed to upgrading the car, making the car quicker. So it's just an awful situation for Williams to be in. I honestly cannot understand if Logan Sargeant manages to retain this seat for next year. He really doesn't deserve it now. I'm sorry. But that big accident and silly accident in Q1 as well. I mean, it was his first fucking push lap. Okay, you got it wrong. Back off. You've got chance to back off and back out of it and abort your lap. And okay, you'd have probably ended up qualifying last anyway, but at least you didn't shunt the fucking car and write it off, to the point where they had to use another chassis. I mean, chassis are expensive bits of kit to repair or to replace, and then of course he has to start from pit lane, then has a 10-second time penalty during the race because of that as well. It's not the team's fault, that's just how the rules work for running a third car effectively. That has to be scrutinised separately. Once you change a chassis, car has to get re-scrutinised. And you have to take a penalty for that, fair enough. But did we even get to see that penalty in the race? I think he did serve it, and then went and took Bottas out. and did more damage to his car. Like, for fuck's sake. And then retired as a result of that as well. So it's just not on, is it? It's just not on. I mean, it's a big damage weekend, really. Albon out with damage. Admittedly not his fault, but still damage nonetheless. Logan Sargeant has a big shunt in qualifying, shunts in the race to the point of retirement. That's still going to be costly. It's just not good enough at all. So disqualified on the cruel room anyway, as you already know, I'm sure. I can't do anything else. I need to look into this on what I can do with disqualified drivers for next season. Maybe even not disqualify and just constantly award them things and give them bad names and stuff, because something needs to happen, because these drivers cannot keep being disqualified and then that means that effectively they get out of jail free card. I don't give them minus points. I don't slag their scoreboard off by giving them loads of Latifis or things like that. They're just sort of anonymous from here on in, and I think I need to change that, and this season has proved it. But I was kind of hoping that you disqualify drivers, and they're not a shit then, but this season has just gone totally wrong, hasn't it? So Logan Sargeant disqualified anyway. It's not good enough. It's just not good enough at all. Disgusting. So what's the next driver then that we've got? It is Lance Stroll. Of course it is. It had to be, didn't it? What a stunning effort. Knocked out in Q1 once again, running round into the staggering, dizzying heights of about 16th, 15th, maybe even 14th, dare I say. Oh, God, can't believe it. Retired ultimately as a result of no fault of his own, a rear wing failure, but I'm sure the car was just that used to breaking up. It probably thought, God, I'm still in one piece, this can't happen. Oh God, I can't handle all these G-forces for so long, I'm going to fall to bits. And his rear wing failed, so there you go. Again, piss poor effort, absolutely ridiculous. He's just a fucking moron, isn't he? Disgusting. Had this been any other driver, it'd have been out long ago in Formula 1, but, his daddy bought a fucking team so he could stay there. It's just not acceptable, is it? It's just not acceptable at all again. This is just a piss poor effort. And again, Lance Stroll is out of a race. As mentioned, rear wing failure, potentially not his fault, but just a fucking idiot. Then we've got Sergio Perez. Now, what the fucking hell are we going to say about his race weekend, are we? What are we going to say? Qualified P5 in a car that was worthy of front row lockout. His teammate's 6/10 ahead of the next car. Why isn't he filling that void? Why isn't he just 3/10 away from his teammate and filling that gap and locking the front row out? But then what do? We have a poor start. We bang wheels with Lewis Hamilton at the start. That damages us front wing. We have to come in and pit for that. Then we're trying to make us way through the field. And then we take Kevin Magnussen out and take us front wing off again. Oh, for fuck's sake, Sergio. I mean, I can't believe he's contracted next year and no one's batting a fucking eyelid as to whether he's going to stay there or not. I mean, he's just gone down the pan, hasn't he? He has just gone down the pan. Ever since that shunt in Monaco in qualifying, he has gone to shit. His championship, he's not just his championship campaign, but him himself has just gone to absolute rat shit. You know, that up until that point, they were doing front row lockouts, they were winning races, they were always on the podium, the worst he'd finished were third, and then after Monaco shunt, he's just fucking nowhere for most of it. Has he had like 2 podiums or something since then? It's been ridiculously bad for a car that should be winning races regularly. Well, Max Verstappen's proved it should be winning races, so Sergio Perez should be on the podium every race then. Just not acceptable once again. Sergio Perez, as mentioned, same with Stroll, same with Sargent. Disqualified anyway, not much more I can do than that. Needs addressing for next year. I'm well pissed off with them all. It's just unacceptable, unacceptable. So yeah, Sergio Perez, fucking useless again. Doesn't deserve his seat next season if I was honest, but there we go. That's life, isn't it? And we'll see how he gets on in the next few races, but he's just useless. And then last but by no means least, we come to Valtteri Bottas.
Hey, guy, come join me in the disqualified pile. Don't worry, the goat doesn't bite. Well, not unless you want me to. Growl.
There we have it. I've had enough. He's been disqualified on the cruel room, and possibly the harshest way possible, because it wasn't really his fault. It was harpooned by Logan Sargent, of course, as already mentioned. But I just think, you know, idiots are like magnets attracting, and these idiots were just all attracting each other this weekend, weren't they? You know, they're all doing dismally bad. Bottas didn't do anything special in qualifying. The race itself, he got involved in the first lap incident. And then he gets taken out by fucking Logan Sargent. It's just the same as always with him though, isn't it? It's just the same. I've just had enough. He's been on the thinnest of thin ice now for a couple of races, but I'm not seeing anything. I'm not seeing a Q2 appearance and a decentish qualifying. I'm not seeing a race where it's going quite well before a bit of bad luck or something. I'm just seeing him constantly at the back and doing nothing and getting involved in things he shouldn't be involved in. Valtteri Bottas should not be racing around with Logan Sargent. It's as simple as that. Yeah, I know he had the problem at the start off the line, but again, idiots and magnets attract, and he's got involved in an incident that he shouldn't really been involved in if he'd have been a bit further up. So, yeah, there you go. Valtteri Bottas disqualified on the cruel room, joining the rest of the idiots at the back of this grid. And I think it's just a telltale sign, really, that all 4 of them that finished last in the race and effectively out of the race, all of them out of the race, but all retiring together in this big pile of shite at the back. They've all come together once again. So yeah, there you go. There you have it, everyone. Disqualified for Valtteri Bottas. So everything, guys, those were the runners and riders of the Japanese Grand Prix. Let me know your thoughts and feedback down below. Did I score any drivers too high? Any too low? The updated standings that I have just awarded with these scores now are on the screen for you now to take a look at. Have a look and see where your favourite driver has got to. Have they gone up a little bit? Have they gone down a little bit? Have they stayed the same? This pack is so tight, it's unbelievable. Fernando Alonso still holds on to his lead at the top of the table at the moment, but with the way that Aston Martin's going at the moment, can't seemingly get anywhere near the podium at the moment. Could you see him tumble down towards the closing stages of the season, especially if the likes of Yuki Tsunoda and Alex Albon deliver great results and do good jobs, get themselves into points more regularly as the season comes to a close? They could easily turn around. This championship is all to play for. It really is. It could take, for example, if Nico Hülkenberg got on the podium at Qatar, you can be damn sure I'm scoring him 20 points, and that would send him right up the leaderboard. So yeah, it ain't over till it's over. Except for them that are disqualified. That's definitely over for them. I can guarantee you that. I might not be able to do much more with them, but I can guarantee that they are fucking out of here and won't be scoring anything else other than my abuse. Thanks as always goes out to Dan of formerly Mushy Game and of course currently Dan Bartlett for providing me with the scoreboard that you see on your screen right now, for the driver icons in the corners, for the intros, for the outros, and for generally being a great all-round guy. He is closing in to 2,000 subscribers. I think he's only 20 something away, so you can change that. If you've not subscribed to Dan Bartlett already, go to his YouTube channel and make sure you subscribe and get him to that 2,000 subscribers that he richly deserves. Who can forget, of course, F1 Games PlayStation, also on the hunt for 2,000 subscribers. However, he's a little bit more further away. He's got about a couple of hundred left to go. But again, every sub counts, every view counts. These guys, Dan and Dave, they are monetized on their YouTube channel, so can earn a little bit of revenue and a little bit of income. They've also got their members chats as well, which are $1.99 and 99p. I highly recommend you subscribe to them. It doesn't give you any beneficial in terms of content, of course it doesn't, for that low price, and I think Google take like 33p off them for that as well. You know, they can't provide you any additional content, but it keeps them going. It means that they can save up, get better games to play, can get better editing software, can just generally improve their channel all round. So I highly recommend you check out both those guys, drop them a sub each, and really just support the small YouTubers, really. Their income is minimal on YouTube, and it's just great to support them when you can, especially if you can do that membership and join. If you can, then be sure just to click on their videos, watch their videos. That all helps. Like the videos, comment on them, and of course subscribe as well. But we're not forgetting, of course, Domenico Lando, the resident Canadian of the channel, of course, for providing me with a Latifi of the week. So he has got a YouTube channel, just his name, Domenico Lando, where he live streams his ERL Racing League and the other racing league he does as well on F1 23. And yeah, I mean, if you want to drop him a sub, you can do. He does some Gran Turismo stuff on there occasionally as well. Again, you know, he's not doing YouTube for professionalism or doing it as like a hobby or anything. He just does it to share his race and onboards from his point of view and perspectives. But if that's your thing, drop him a sub as well. Why not? We're spreading the love around this weekend. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you all in a couple of weeks, of course, for the Qatar Grand Prix. The sprint weekend as well, of course, for that, isn't it? So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I think it's going to be boring, but who knows. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you all then. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and as always, much love.